Hello, today we are going to visit the Capelton Mine, which is located in Hadley, in Estrie, Quebec. They have a nice museum where they show the life on the mine. We're going to talk about the story of the mine and the working conditions to which the miners were exposed in the descent into hell. At a depth of 1,500 meters, the term descent into hell comes from the fact that the temperature increases by 1 degree Celsius for every 100 meters traveled towards the center of the earth, and the miners believed that they were getting closer to hell.
The mine opened in 1863 and closed in 1907, so it was in operation for 44 years. So it would take them around 45 minutes to walk all the way up there every single day with all of their tools and stuff. And they weren't even paid to do it. So they would usually work in teams of 2. One miner, the bravest miner, and also in my opinion, the stupidest miner, would hold the handrail against the rock like so, and the other miner would show up with his huge sledgehammer and hit the end of the handrail as hard as he could. As you can imagine, there was a lot of accidents, especially with the fingers, the elbows, and even sometimes the head. An old map. So to the right we have the Capelton Mine, which is the mine in which we are in currently. I hope everyone will recognize that by the end of the tour.
How deep is the mine?
So the Capelton Mine itself is about 1.5 kilometers long. So far we've gone around 40 to 50 meters underground. So really on this map we are situated around right here.
Okay.
Are we gonna go down?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. No. I feel like that'd be a lot of stairs for everyone here. So this is actually the maximum depth that we're gonna reach today because the rest of the mine is flooded.
How come it wasn't flooded in the days when they were exploiting it?
It was definitely a problem for the miners themselves. So they would have to drain it constantly. So what they would do is they work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, their day off being Sunday, the day of the Sabbath. So that's when they would go pray, go to church. But unfortunately for them, they still had to come into the mine to empty out all the water. So what they would do is they would create like a long human chain all the way to the bottom. They would have these pails, which they would then scoop the water from and then pass it on to the next person until it reached the top. And the worst part is they weren't even paid for that. I mentioned they use candles to light up their way, so they would bring a bunch of candles with them, and then in the morning when they came into the mine, they would put one of their candles at the base of the microwave's ancestor, and then they would put their meal in the pot. Usually 30 minutes is not enough time for the miners to eat their lunch, to use the microwave's ancestor, and there's also a black mineral. This is called manganese dioxide. 2 miners could dig around 3 handrail holes a day, so that's essentially 1 bird's foot a day. Now 1 bird's foot generally takes out in width about this much chalcopyrite, so the length of a handrail basically. And also please keep a 2-stair distance between each person. The rock at the top is actually quite low. You can tell we really can't see much, but I'll remind you really the miners, because they had animal fat candles and also because of all the dust and stuff that was in the air, they really could only see to their fingertips. So it's not exactly the same thing as the miners, but you can kind of get the idea. So you may have noticed I've been dripping candle wax onto the ground since I lit this candle so I don't burn myself. The miners would do exactly that with their animal fat candles onto their hats. So they would drip it and then they would stick it and it would stay. Now you probably can't see my face very well, but I can assure you that I can see you all pretty well. It's like the ancestor to the frontal lamp. Now the only problem with that was that the miners didn't happen to have nice hard hats that we have today. They had hats made out of felt. Now you may know felt happens to be a very flammable material, so if ever their candle was to tip over in something, their felt hat could rapidly turn into a fire hat. Now that's nice for the miner's partner because suddenly he has a nice burst of light to work with. Not so great for the miner who at the end of the day had a very weird haircut. So what they did is they invented this tool that was sold at the general store. at the bottom of the hill. This is called a candle holder. Like, the name is pretty self-explanatory. They would just stick the candle inside the candle holder, and you can see there's a long rod attached to it. So they would look for natural holes inside of the rock, or if there weren't any, they would create them themselves. They would just stick the candle holder into the rock, and it would stay. Creates a nice halo too again. Does anyone remember what this wooden post was for? It's essentially like a safety system. Now the miners were actually quite lucky. They had a second security system. There's also a second animal. This is Jerry the rat. Why rats? Well, if you look at Jerry here, you can see that his legs are actually very, very short. Now because they're very, very short, their stomachs tend to be very close to the ground. And since they have very, very sensitive stomachs, they can sense if there's vibrations going on in the rock. So they can sense if there's going to be a rock slide up to 4 hours in advance.
Oh.
So very, very useful for the miners. Now I mentioned earlier that there was about 150 to 200 miners in the best years of the mine. Well, there's about twice as many rats. So 300 to 400 rats in the Capelton Mine. That might sound a little distasteful, but I can assure you if a miner saw 300 to 400 rats running towards the exit, he would follow them. Now the only problem is, he sees the rats coming, he's gonna grab his candle from the candle holder. What happens when I run with my candle? It's gonna go out. And they also tended to be able to find their way around pretty easily. Like for example, if a miner was working here for, in this area right here for long periods of time, he'd be able to know that there was like a rock right there, which he may have had to bend over to. You can turn off my candle and you can try to find the exit on your own. Once you get to like there, you can see the entrance. The exit is that way. Please don't go off in the other direction.